hopefully the glare and all of that is not too bad. And hopefully the noise in the background is not too bad. I'm traveling internationally, and if you can see over my shoulder here, in the room we have I guess it's a portable AC unit. I don't know, but it might be a humidifier, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so there's been a lot of protests recently, and one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we talk to you about is the contrast between the Black Lives Matter protests or social injustice protests that have been going on and the protests we saw a couple of months ago regarding people who did not want to wear masks or who were opposed to the government telling them that they should wear masks or had to wear masks. So I am Angel with Unbasic Black, coming to you from my international hotel suite here, and hopefully you'll find this video informative. So where do I begin? It has been a crazy couple of months, and I can honestly say I don't think anybody thought the protests would be going on as long as they have. I'm actually proud of the men and women who have taken up the cause for for the social injustice movements that have been going on. I was listening to Black by a UK rapper named Dave, and it kind of solidified a lot of the things and a lot of the feelings that people have been having throughout this whole time. We've talked about it before that this is not a new issue. This is not something that is just new to 2020. This is something that people of color, in particular African Americans, people of African descent around the world have been talking about for generations. This is something that has been deeply rooted in societies across the world for a very long time, and that is the color of your pigmentation. The darker you get, the more injustices you face, which is incredibly stupid. I mean, we don't have to tell anybody how stupid that is, but it is where we are in our current presidential administration, that's for sure, but that's where we are in our society. For as many strides as we've made since the civil rights movement, for example, it's kind of like we are sliding backwards in terms of a lot of the police brutality, shootings, and injustices that we've seen over the past couple of years, really, but in particular the last couple of months. So how does that compare or contrast to individuals exercising their rights to protest when it comes to masks? That was a good question that was posed by May, and it's kind of difficult to answer because they have a right to protest as well. I think one of the major differences for me is that when it comes to wearing face masks, you're talking about protecting other people, and I think it's a pretty selfish standpoint to have, to say that the government doesn't have a right to tell you to wear a mask. I mean, it's no different than any other laws that have been put in place for safety reasons. You have to wear a seatbelt because the government has had to tell idiots out there that it's safer for you to operate your vehicle if you're wearing your seatbelt. And if you don't wear your seatbelt, you face fines, citations, and things like that. And now that we're in this current situation with the pandemic, it's the same thing. It's for public safety reasons. Sometimes the government gets it right to where you have to think of the greater good in your fellow man before you think of yourself. What harm is it to you to not wear a mask? You have to wear a seatbelt. You have to, have a driver's license. You have to pay your taxes. These are things that are a part of society that make up a society as a whole. If you don't want to be a part of society, if you don't want to live in society, that's why you have people who go out to the far reaches of wherever, but when their society's out in the woods or wherever they have their commune or compound or whatever, when it starts interfering with the laws of the land, then that's when the government starts to interfere with them. So I think it's only common sense when we're talking about public safety and public health that individuals wear a mask. Now, how that compares with the protests for social change that we've seen is that we are talking about the greater good. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, it's, of course, all lives matter, but we're talking about a group of people who are in trouble, who are facing danger and harm on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about people who have not been allowed to exercise God-given rights. And that's totally different than somebody who's saying, I don't want to wear a mask over my face when I go to a store in a public place. We talk about Breonna Taylor, bless her soul, somebody who was following every law, who was doing everything right, who was asleep in her own apartment when individuals who shouldn't have been there anyway burst in and murdered her in her own home. I cannot even fathom how terrifying that had to be for her in her final moments. And these are the type of things that we're trying to stop with the Black Lives Matter movement and the social change movement, because as you can see, it's erupted across the entire world. I think it's wonderful that we have iPhones and, all of these FaceTimes and real times and Facebook Live and all of these things, because for so long people thought people of color were exaggerating a lot of the incidents that we've seen, and now they can see that we weren't making these things up. Now they can see that everything that we had talked about has been happening, but now they can see it live in color, on video. And it reminds me of when I was taking African American humanities. And one of the things that we had talked about in class was the contrast between the slave trade and, for example, the Holocaust. Because the Holocaust was caught on camera in real color, there was no denying, well, in black and white, but transferred to color, there was no denying that this occurred. The Germans probably tried to downplay it at first, but you can't argue when you see soldiers murdering, hundreds and thousands of people. The difference with the slave movement is that there was no video. There was no photograph or photography. We had a few paintings that some people had did to kind of mark their cargo and mark their, possessions and property, but there was no video evidence, so it didn't drive the point home as poignantly as it would have had it been captured on video. That all changed with George Floyd, bless his soul. We were able to see the corruption and sheer police brutality that ended a man's life. And he's not the first. It's just one of the first that has been captured on video in such a way that moved the entire world, because people saw how monumentally unfair, unjust, and cold and just completely evil that murder was. When you see somebody begging for their life and police who are supposed to protect and, see, I'm getting emotional again, people who are supposed to protect and serve just take their lives away from them. And for what? And for what? So these things that we are seeing now when it comes to protests are generations upon generations of outrage.
Hey, I'm May with Unbasic Black, and I am coming to you from my home. This social distancing thing and all of that our new normal is really interesting. With I like to watch talk shows, particularly late night talk shows, to see and how their new normal is. Like, I've been watching James Corden, and his whole band is socially distanced. They're in the studio, but they're socially distanced, and everybody's wearing a mask, except for James. I assume because he's in front of the camera. So, and then they do their interviews remotely, so their guests are coming from their homes and stuff like that. So, as you saw, Angel is in an international hotel right now, and I am at home, and we are doing this video together apart. So, but I wanted to just go reiterate some things about what she was saying. So the mask protest back in the early part of the pandemic, I always thought that it was something of an inconvenience. People just didn't want to be inconvenienced with having to wear a mask. I don't like being inconvenienced either, but I also don't like spreading my germs to other people. I never did, and the weird thing about this pandemic is like people never cover their mouths when they cough. I mean, are you too? And you have to learn how to cover your mouth when you cough or when you sneeze. Do you have to learn how to wash your hands and all that kind of thing? You have to learn not to be in people's personal space, that sort of thing. So it's been a learning thing for all of us, and it's our new normal for now until there's a conveniently produced a conveniently timed produced vaccine for this virus. So that was the thing with the protests early on, and we had done a video about that and how people were just how selfish can you be, and going out, not wearing a mask, yelling, spitting in people's faces, and even doing that now. I heard a story about on the radio about this a fast food worker. He has to monitor people who come in to make sure that they're wearing their mask, and people have yelled at him because it's like no shoes, no shirt, no service, no mask, no service. You cannot come in here because you are putting other people's lives in danger by breathing on them. We don't know what you have, kind of thing, and we're not mandated at this point to walk around with a "I've been tested" pendant on us or anything like that. Wow, that just Angel talked about the Holocaust, and that just kind of reminded me of that for some reason. Ugh. Yeah. So that was that. But then you fast forward, then you fast forward a few months, and we find out that we see that George Floyd was murdered by a police officer who basically strangled him to death. And then there is outrage. People took to the streets en masse and in masks. So what's the difference? The difference is the earlier protests, because there was no social distancing in either, no social distancing in either one. The earlier protests, it's about inconvenience. These current protests are about social injustice, and the people are wearing masks. So to me, it's an apples and oranges things. I get how people can be upset, like, well, you shot us down for protesting our right to not wear a mask, but these guys can just go out and do whatever they want to do. No, they're not doing whatever they want to do. They are in masks. Yes, they're close together, but they are wearing masks, and they're not trying to breathe all over people, and they're not spitting in people's faces, talking about what they can and cannot do as pertains to wearing a mask. It's just not an easy time at all for any of this. But I am, as Angel said, I too am grateful for the people who have been out protesting these murders, protesting the injustice that Black people, just not in America but all over the world, have been experiencing. We had mentioned in a video or three ago about how people all over the world are protesting, and then it's like in Australia and France. And it's just amazing to me how Black people all over the world are going through the same thing, and it's a weird thing to say, but it's something how there's that one thing that spurs people to action. Our, and I'm going to use black people, our suffering has been, it's not new. Us being killed because of what we look like is not new. Our skin color being killed because of the melanin in our skin, it's not a new thing. But it was just something about this sacrifice that was made that and a lot of people have talked about it. I've heard interviews, and then Angel brought it up too. It's just seeing the life leave a body, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. I can't. I don't want to. I get the gist that this happened. That this man, whatever his past was, it didn't justify him being killed. And then I've heard and I've seen some pictures of the guy, of the police officer, just treating George Floyd like a trophy animal. Wow, treating him like a trophy animal. So yeah, people are gonna go out and they're gonna protest, and I appreciate the protesters going out. I'm not able to, but I appreciate them, and I support them, and I appreciate those who have been directing the protests, like making sure that people stay on point, stay on message, and do things the right way, as right as protesting can be, because the whole point is to disrupt. The whole point of a protest is to disrupt. So I appreciate you protesters, and thank you for standing with us, all of you of all races and nationalities, and thank you to people who have lent kindnesses to the protesters. Like there was someone in New York had invited protesters into their homes after the police. And Angel brought up about the point about with seeing, because we've seen other people beaten and who've been choked and all that kind of thing, but we hadn't seen them to the point of murder. So she had brought up how we weren't exaggerating about how we're treated as a people, and she brought up about how the differences between the Holocaust and the slave trade was, you saw pictures of slaves in the field and stuff like that, but you didn't see them being beaten. You heard about it, and there have been autobiographies. At any rate, all of that to say, the mask issue, the protests back in when the pandemic first hit, when people first started doing something about the pandemic, and the governors and the mayors and stuff were issuing the orders to keep people safe, put on a mask and social distance as much as possible. So, and then people like, I don't want to do that, and I don't have to, because it's my right as a citizen of the United States. This is America. This is not a fascist country. Well, we're trying to keep you safe, and I like that point about the seatbelt. You wear a seatbelt because it keeps you in the car. If you get into an accident, it keeps you in the car instead of flying through the windshield. So with masks, it keeps people spit from flying in your face, kind of thing. And whether you realize it or not, there are droplets, and the scientists have talked about this. There are droplets that come out no matter what. I mean, you don't have to be actively with people. You're just talking, and there's that residual spray that happens automatically. So it's like, I'm inconvenienced. Black people are dying. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate those who have, along with Angel, we appreciate the support, the people who have liked our videos, who've commented, and the people who've subscribed to our channel. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we're also on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. And again, I'm May with I'm Basic Black, and I appreciate you watching. Stay safe, stay safe. And again, thank you, protesters, and thank you, sports people, also for joining in the protests in the way that you can, and that is awesome. And I am very proud of you as a sports fan, particularly football. So thank you, and y'all be good, be safe.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you know when we have new videos coming out. And all of you who have subscribed already, all of you who are watching our channel and supporting us, we do thank you from the bottom of our hearts from that. So coming to you from my hotel room here, thank you for watching.